Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode, exciting episode, I believe, of the Never An Afterthought show. Today, we'll be discussing the topic, how humans can win the robots. Interesting, right? How humans can win the robots, particularly in the fourth industrial revolution. To join this conversation, remember that you use the hashtag Never An Afterthought, and you can follow us on all our social media channels, on Twitter at NAA_book, on Facebook and on Instagram at NA Afterthought. You can also leave your comments on the channel wherein you are watching or listening to me. Long before now, in 2005 precisely, our company, MCS Consulting, defined our HR competence formula. And our formula was right skills plus right knowledge on the right job, underpinned by right attitude, is equal to competence. Now, why did we say that it needed to be underpinned by right attitude? It is because attitude is one of the components of soft skills that I consider a foundational skill, or better still, a fundamental skill. Just as a foundation is to a building, or a root is to a plant, so is attitude to your competence. I later went on in life to develop PEAR. PEAR, which are guiding principles that are later established in life, it's the acronym for passion, integrity, empathy, reliability, and resilience. And we've been discussing this in the last two episodes of our show. You have often heard the term the future of work or the fourth industrial revolution. And anytime you hear these topics, it brings about the controversy around how robots will overtake humans in the workplace. Many research studies have shown, even that of McKinsey, have shown that estimates close to half of all US jobs may be automated in the next decade. In other words, within the next 10 years, by 2030, half of all the jobs in the United States of America may become automated. I needed to pause so that it will sink in. And even a recent article that I read on the Harvard Business Review shows that this future of work looks grim for many people. It further states that the jobs that are likely to be automated are those that are repetitive and routinic. In other words, if you are in a job that is repetitive and also routine, then such jobs risk, or they're endangered jobs, endangered species, and they may as well become automated. RR should remind you of something. In our last episodes, I spoke about RR, Rolls Royce, reliability, resilience. Now we're talking about repetitive and routine. Now, examples of these jobs, they range from x-rays, reading x-rays, which usually radiotherapists will do, to truck driving those trucks, that are very important to our supply chain, to stocking a warehouse, even to bookkeeping. And I can go on and on and on and on. But as we race against time and innovation, let us pause to ask, what aspects of surviving jobs cannot be replaced by machines? So yes, some jobs will be automated, some jobs would be lost, but the jobs that remain, what aspect of those jobs may not possibly be automated? In other words, you will still need humans to work or to regulate those jobs. That's what we want to x-ray tonight. So we're talking about the future, but that future is now. And so today we'll be x-raying that future today and see how humans can indeed win the robots in the fourth industrial revolution. I won't be doing this alone. I'll be joined by my sister, my friend, my professional colleague. I like to define her as a transformational and design expert. She is the CEO of Chrysalis Professional Services in Boston, United States of America. And she's no other than Adora Neboh. She will be joining us after the break. Thanks, everyone. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Never An Afterthought show. Today, we're discussing the topic, how humans can win robots in the fourth industrial revolution. Very exciting topic and indeed very engaging. You can join this conversation using the hashtag Never An Afterthought on our various social media channels, on Twitter at NAA_book, on Facebook and on Instagram at NA Afterthought. Just before we went on break, I was introducing my guest on our show tonight. She's no other person than Adora Neboh. I like to call her a transformational and design expert, the CEO of Chrysalis Professional Services in Boston, United States. She's not just a Nigerian American, but a full vested Nigerian who worked just like me in KPMG and later on Philips Consulting, and most recently before starting up our own outfit as a chief talent officer for Troika Nigeria. Adora, good evening. Greetings.
Hi, Afolabi. Hi, nice to be here.
Cool, thank you. How is it in the US?
It's cold.
You sure?
Well, it's getting cold.
Okay. So, well, I don't know what side are you on with elections?
No, let's not talk about that. Let's not do it. Don't do it. Don't go there.
You know what? But I mean, I'm sure you are Team Biden. In any case, the rules of democracy tell us that after an election is fought and won, that president-elect becomes the president-elect for the entire America. So even if you don't want to tell me what team you belong, Joe Biden shall be the president of America come January 20, 2021.
So he is president already. He's president-elect. So.
Okay. So Adora, the topic we're discussing today, how humans can win over robots or fourth industrial revolution. That's not a strange topic to you. It's not a space that you're uncomfortable about. It's a space you very much know well about, especially being a transformational strategist, being someone who's worked on strategy in for many years. So can you just explain to us in very simple terms, what is the fourth industrial revolution?
You know, it's interesting that we are talking about this, you know. By the way, a lot of people don't agree that this is a fourth industrial revolution. You know, there's still arguments about, is this an industrial revolution or is it an extension of the third industrial revolution? You know, but as far as I'm concerned.
So just a minute. Can you just quickly let us know what have been the revolutions? The first, the second, the third, and maybe why this is now a fourth or is an extension of the third. Yeah.
The first was, of course, mechanization. when we figured out how to kind of mechanize processes that human beings would normally do. The second was automation with automobiles. Remember when we had cars and all that. The first one involved railroads and trains. The second
steam engines, turbines.
Yes, steam engines, turbines. The second one involved cars. If you know the story, Ford played a very big role in the second industrial revolution. The third one, of course, was computers and nuclear energy. And then now we have what people are saying might be an extension of the third industrial revolution, which is digitization. So what usually happens with industrial revolutions is that each time we have an industrial revolution, it changes the way industry behaves. It changes the way we do trade, it changes the way we work, it changes the way we communicate with each other, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like an epic change that happens and transforms a lot of attendant infrastructure and things around it. Each industrial revolution means something becomes redundant. Imagine the kind of world it would have been when we went from trains to model cars. All of a sudden, taking goods from one place to the other became, really, really fast, and changed the way the waiting time to get your goods and things like that. So every industrial revolution means dramatic changes in the way we do trade and in the way we work. So now, speaking about,
what are the defining factors of the fourth industrial revolution now?
So the fourth industrial revolution is, of course, where we're seeing digitization, right? It's a bit different from computerization and automation. How I like to explain it in very simple terms is that automation means you have a process that currently exists. So what you do is you kind of automate that process that already exists.
Yeah.
So you don't really change the process, you just turn it into something that is mechanized or a robot can do. You just automate it. While digitization is a little different in the sense that it looks at a problem and uses existing technology to solve the problem. It is very agnostic of existing processes. It doesn't really care whether there's a process that does this or not. What it does is, first of all, thinks through the problem and then figures out how to use digital technology to solve it. I'll give you a typical example, one that everybody talks about, like Airbnb, right? Airbnb, of course, hotels existed, right? Of course, people had like apartments, short-let apartments, it existed. But when Airbnb came, they didn't think about, the problem they were trying to solve wasn't the problem necessarily of whether you can find a hotel or not. Otherwise, they would have done what Expedia and Co have done with hotels, just come online and book a hotel. But what they did was they changed the way they thought about what accommodation meant, short-term accommodation. They wanted to solve a problem and also put power into the hands of the crowd. So at the end of the day, it became a crowdsourced solution for, if you want to go on a short holiday, you don't need to book a crazy expensive hotel. Just find someone who has a place and stay in their place. So that it's just solving a societal problem. But when they did solve that problem, they ended up disrupting a lot of people. That was not their intention. They just solved the problem and they ended up disrupting a lot of people. So digitization, there are some characteristics that are clear. It's driven by innovation. You can see traits like crowdsourcing, meaning where instead of us pushing things and pushing features onto people, we ask them for the solutions. You can see traits like very astronomically growing organizations because they are not bound by
geography.
Not just geography or even industry, they don't have these hard lines. What I do is this, and I can't do anything else. They don't think like that. So what they do is they just engage with human beings. And when they engage with human beings, they know what human beings want, and then they solve them. So digitalized organizations and organizations of the future are organizations that build customers. They don't build products. So they start by building a fan base. They have fanatics. And then they just start. When you have fanatics, you can sell them anything. So I think
so that's almost like what you talk about, a shared economy.
it's a shared economy. Yeah.
And some people have argued, in fact, I know a friend who wrote a book, that the future is shared. And just using examples like what you've used about the Airbnb, who doesn't own one hotel room, but, you know, it's able to connect a whole lot more, you know, occupancy per night than even the biggest of the hotel chains. So a digital. So one thing I got from this is digitization, born out of innovation, born out of problem solving, born out of crowdsourcing, shared economy. Yes. As against when
a lot of engagement with human beings. That's critical.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as against so as against in the third industrial revolution, when it was computerization, because people may tend to, but we've been doing computer. Okay. Now, since we've established this background, and you have a whole lot of practical experience, which we'll come to later in the show, what is that special gift that humans have that gives us that edge over robots or over automation of sort? What's that human edge that we have? Because, you know, remember, we're discussing today how humans can win over robots. So before we go into the how, what is that? Or maybe that's just even what we want to discuss. What's that human edge that humans have over robots? Yeah.
I tend to call it creation. We create. You know, we initiate, we create. You know, we have the emotions that allows us to see things in a certain way. Computers cannot do that. You know, there are things that robots, artificial intelligence, computers are good at, but human beings created these things. You know, and we shouldn't forget that we created them. We created the guidelines that they are following. We are the ones that fashion out what they should do and what they shouldn't do. It is our responsibility to do that. So that alone sets us apart clearly. When you have a situation that is counterintuitive or controversial, artificial intelligence will not be able to figure that out the way a human being can link one concept to the other and arrive at a conclusion. Once you haven't programmed AI or a robot to think like that, it's not possible for it to see anything that has nuances that are not clear. You know, it's kind of difficult. You know, I like to say that nobody is completely evil and nobody is completely good. You know, that's something that I say. And when I say that, what I actually mean is that if you look well at human beings, if you trace their history, you know, all their nurture and nature, you'll be able to maybe see why they behave the way they do. It's not black and white. You know, a computer will not be able to think in that way. So if, let's say, a computer was a lawyer, was a judge, and you come and say, I committed a crime. This person committed a crime. Did you commit the crime? Yes or no? Oh yeah, you get
binary, 0 or 1.
It's very binary. But a human judge would look at it and say, okay, why did you do this? Where did it come from? What did you have a fight with your wife that morning? You know, and so many issues that only a human being can be able to decipher. Once you don't program it into AI, it will not be able to think in that way. So that means a difference.
So one, emotions. I've heard you talk about emotions, being emotive. I've heard you talk about context, because being emotive means that you're able to bring in context beyond just being binary 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. You're able to bring in context. I've also heard you talk about creating, the power of being a creator or creating. So that tells me that things around, you know, creative problem solving, because you also mentioned earlier when we were talking about Airbnb, how, you know, they think, you know, you think a solution out. So it tells me that there are certain things that humans possess, as you began to mention them, that makes us gain an edge over the robot, because the human has to program that robot to respond, you know. So if the human has not even thought through it, to then program the robot, there's still so what other skills do humans have that, in this same vein, that helps us to win the robot?
So we talk a lot about what people call soft skills, right? Which includes some of the things that we've mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like to think of them as soft skills, because I think, first of all, I've always, to be honest with you, I've always disliked that phrase. Right from years ago when it was such a buzz, everybody, okay, you have hard skills and you have soft skills. Now we're beginning to realize that these skills aren't that soft, especially when the hard skills are being taken over by technology. It changes the conversation dramatically. So those things that you were proud of that you could do, they were your core hard skills. Well, there's a computer somewhere doing it. So at the end of the day, what are you left with? You're now left with, in quotes, the soft skills. Soft skills like, all of them are hinged on behavior. I like to call them foundational or fundamental or even enabling skills.
Yeah.
Because things that enable you to do anything that you're going to do. If I had two people, if I were interviewing two people, and one of them both of them were technically strong, whatever. I would actually, even if one of them was technically strong and behaviorally weak, and the other one was technically just average, but behaviorally strong, I'm more likely to hire the one that's behaviorally strong, because then that person will be teachable. That person can learn, that person can grow, that person has the right attitude, and I will be comfortable working with that kind of person.
Adora, you just took something out of one of the things we said in our last episode around the 3 C's I look out for. Someone asked the question, how did I build my team when I was in government on running the Empower program in government? And I talked about the 3 C's, capacity, competence. So, or let's say character, competence, and capacity. And then, of course, I've spoken a lot about empathy before then. But then I then mentioned that, I tend to, once I find someone who has character and who has capacity, I can take that person over someone who doesn't have competence, because I can build competence. Just like you're saying, if you have the behavioral skills, I would rather take you and build the technical skills on top of the behavioral skills. And that's what I was also saying, if you remember the early part of the show when I talked about the formula, the MCS formula, what we said, right skill, right attitude.
Yeah, I found that very interesting.
Behavioral skills, foundational skills. Since we're talking about moved into soft skills, would you agree that skills like problem solving, effective communication, adaptive learning, are these the skills that you're referring to as soft skills or behavioral skills?
Absolutely. To bring it home, closer to the conversation we're actually having, today, there are certain things we're looking for. They're not apart from all the other competencies that come with a specific job, there are certain things that we must see. If we don't see it, if you're an individual contributor, meaning that you're not, in quote, in a leadership position, we will be looking for things like how adaptable are you to change? This has become totally critical because change is happening so fast. That by the time you're in first year in college, some of the things you learned in first year, by the time you're in third year, those things are redundant in the world. You don't even need those skills anymore. I always joke, and I make a joke to my parents. We're having this conversation, so you might as well laugh. I make a joke to my parents. I ask my mom all the time, why did you teach me how to sweep? Why did you teach me how to do these things? Because there's technology for that. There's a vacuum cleaner. Why do I need to know how to sweep? These are redundant skills. Why did you teach me these things? So a lot of the things that I learned in college are no longer useful. In fact, they are far, far redundant. If I were not a learning human being, I would be left behind. So it's become critical that we find people who not only can learn, but are amenable to quick changes, that don't get too frustrated when change happens quickly, because that is characteristic of the world of work today. We're also looking for people who can link one concept to the other and come up with a solution. So we're looking for critical thinkers, analytical thinkers, people who can figure it out and figure it out fast. I'll tell you what we're looking. We're also looking for, ability to connect with other people, because now we're no longer. It's important. What you say is important. What you do is important. The whole world. We're all living on a stage right now. We've got social media. Every single word you utter matters to someone. And if you work for me, I'll probably be looking at your Facebook page sometimes, because I want to see what you're saying, because it reflects on me, and people check your social media before they hire you. They look at your LinkedIn, they look at your Facebook. What do you think they're looking for? They want to hear who you are.
And your interconnectedness.
And what you're saying, does it reflect our values? Is it the brand that we're trying to project to our customers? So these things has shifted because really those technical skills in quotes are good, but most of them are, like you said yourself, about 57% of all jobs are either already have been automated or about to be
getting ready to. We're going to take a break shortly, so I'm going to leave you with your thoughts before we go on break. Now, if these skills are this important, is it not a misnomer calling them soft skills? Shouldn't we really be calling them power skills and not soft skills? But we'll take that answer right after the break. These principles I'm about to share with us today will work for you anywhere. But thankful now for social media. Social media is now connecting, bringing back that whole concept of it takes a village. Once you imbibe the principles of empathy, you will get much better results. One of such is accountability. Please join me on YouTube every Thursday at 6 p.m. West African time for another exciting and engaging episode of the Never An Afterthought show. Thanks, guys. If you're just joining us, welcome again to the Never An Afterthought show. We've been on discussing how humans can win over robots in the fourth industrial revolution. I've had my friend, my sister, my colleague Adora discussing this with us. To continue with us on this conversation, always remember to use the hashtag Never An Afterthought and follow us on all our channels at NAA_book on Twitter and at NAA Afterthought for Facebook and for Instagram. Before we went on break, we were discussing some of the skills that are very important, some of these human skills, or that the world used to call soft skills, and that we are discussing now that they're so important for us today and so important for us going into the fourth industrial revolution. And so we said that really they should not be called soft skills, but rather we should be calling them power skills or human skills, because these are the skills that humans that are emotive to humans, and those are the edge that we have over the robots and over automation in the fourth industrial revolution. But having laid this background, and we've spoken a lot about it, in fact, let me quote the Harvard Business Review and a research that was done. It says 93% of employers reported that a candidate's demonstrated capacity to think critically, communicate clearly, and solve complex problems is more important than his or her undergraduate or postgraduate degree. That's so, let me repeat it again. It says 93% of employers reported that a candidate demonstrated capacity to think critically, to communicate clearly, and to solve complex problems is more important than his or her undergraduate or postgraduate degree. Now, with this in mind, and all that we've said earlier about these power skills, Adora, I want to ask, what should our education therefore be focusing on? Should we still be, even when we talk about technology, should we just be focusing on teaching our students or our learners how to just code? Or what more should we really be focusing on in our education?
Is, especially in Nigeria, education in Nigeria has been, honestly, has been very deficient in a very fundamental part of what makes you a whole person, especially when we're trying to hire you, right? So yes, teach coding, teach technology, teach the STEM skills that people need, because that is the medium, that is the language, so it's like teaching English.
That's the baseline.
That's the base. We all need to learn how to speak English or speak whatever language that helps us communicate, so this is the medium of communication. Yeah, teach it. It's important, but it's not the solution. It is just the medium. The solution lies in people, So how do you unlock that solution in people? It is through what those, in quote, soft skills, which now we have agreed that they're not so soft. So right now, like I was telling you, before, we're looking for skills like critical thinking. We're looking for problem solving, creatively solving problems, and innovating, coming up with new solutions that did not exist before. In fact, I'll go one step back. We're looking for people with ideas, because innovation comes from ideas. So, and we don't want you to think that you have to solve the problem by yourself. So we are looking for people who can collaborate. So if I have 10 people with ideas, I'm more likely to innovate quickly than if I had one person that was very intelligent and bright and whatever, but was a lone ranger. I don't
Now,
want
let me take you on, Adora. Let me take you on collaboration,
Yes.
because you rightly said it, problem solving, team, which is what we used to call team building or interpersonal relationships, to be able to collaborate with people. But in the fourth industrial revolution, where we're talking about machine learning, robot automation, is there not going to be some level of also knowing how to collaborate with machines or computers or the robots?
Oh my God, I'm glad you said that. The truth is, we're collaborating with humans and we're collaborating with machines, especially artificial intelligence. Right now, there was a research that was done. I think it was Harvard Business School or someone did a research with about 1,500 companies on how humans were working with machines. And one important thing that came out of that whole research was the concept of collaborative intelligence. So what they're saying is humans have a certain kind of intelligence and machines have a certain kind of intelligence. The kind of intelligence we have is what we've been talking about: critical thinking, emotions, context, being able to see context. The kind of intelligence machines have is being able to analyze copious amounts of data. We can't do that, but we use that information to create, So there are ways that humans work with computers or work with artificial intelligence in particular. First of all, it is our job to design how they work. So it's our job to define the procedural guidelines for how they behave. It is our job to protect us as human beings from computers. So when we're building computers, we make sure that we're not building things that can harm us. So you see, even the technology people are learning about human beings, about what is important to us as humans. So I think I was discussing with you sometime in the past about facial recognition.
Yeah.
I feel they
Which is
consider
very common now with a lot of our phones, iris,
yeah.
and things like that.
Imagine that the person that wrote the code for your iPhone's facial recognition did not write the code to include Black people, for example, or to include Caucasians, for example. Because maybe in their world, that's not how they don't think about everybody when they are thinking. So they just wrote a code for recognizing only a certain kind of faces. What it means is that if I buy an iPhone and put my face against it, it will not
recognize.
It won't recognize my face as a human face. So these things have become critical in the conversation about building technology. It still comes down to human behavior. It comes down to empathy. It comes down to understanding what matters to all the people that you're trying to sell this product to. You have to understand them. You have to care about them. So when we are talking about what we're looking for, those are the things. And I want to say something about leadership.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for a leader right now in today's world, I'm looking for someone who can make decisions. I'm looking for someone who can actually manage complexity, because there's a lot of complex things happen. And finally, I'm looking for someone who can manage diversity, because the more diverse your team is, the better at innovation they become. So you cannot be the kind of leader that only likes one kind of person. You have to like all of us, the mad ones, or the good ones, or all of us. You have to like all of us and help us work for you.
Thank you. Adora, we could continue on, and I can see all our chat lines, different questions, comments coming in. But again, we want to keep this fresh. We want to keep this succinct so that we'll keep coming back, and our audience would always see this fresh and keep coming back. So I'm going to have to pause you. I won't stop you. I'm going to have to pause you, and I'm sure you will be wanted back by popular demand. But just before I wrap up, a few things that I think I heard you say, just as we're talking about education. What should our education be focusing on? I think another thing is also the fact that the how of our education becomes very critical. Because if you really want to develop critical thinking skills, they don't come from reading theory. They come from thinking. They come from, they come from experience. They come from case studies. They come from iterating a whole or simulation. So I think these are the things that behooves us as a people, especially in Nigeria, and all our policy formulators, especially with education. These are the conversations that should interest them to be able to really reform our education. Incidentally, in our last episode as well, we spoke about this, the need for us to reform education. Again, today now, we're speaking to education. It tells us education is the bedrock, is the bedrock of humanity. Because we really continue to learn, and we don't stop learning until the day we die. Adora, thank you so very much. I want to thank you, and I hope that when next we call on you, you would oblige us again of your time and of your knowledge.
Well, thank you. This was fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Let me conclude this episode today by reiterating the importance of these power skills. Some call them soft skills, but like you heard tonight, soft skills is a misnomer, and I think we would like to calibrate them and call them power skills. And the reason why I'm summarizing this is because that's what you need. When we talk about humans winning over robots, it's really about you winning over robots. It's really about how do you compete favorably in the fourth industrial revolution. And so tonight, in the last 30 minutes, we've spoken about critical thinking. Critical thinking, very important. Employers in the research have said 93% of them say they look for people who demonstrate capacity for critical thinking. Creative problem solving. We talked about the edge humans have. It's the edge of creation, the edge to be able to create. Adaptive learning. We mentioned adaptive learning. just being able to adapt, in a fast-paced world, just being able to adapt with dealing with every and everybody, every and every type of a human, and even now adapt with dealing with machines, effective communication. You cannot underemphasize that. Teamwork, team building, teamwork, interpersonal skills, not only being able to deal with one another, but even being able to deal with machines, being able to deal with artificial intelligence, which is basically the coding, the processing, the priming of machines in the fourth industrial revolution. Emotional intelligence, so very important. Emotional intelligence, very important. Decision making. You heard my guest, you heard Adora speak about we're looking for leaders who can make decisions, leaders who have good judgments, to make decisions. And especially good judgments in making decisions comes in being able to bring in context and emotions. In all of this, you will see the importance of those guiding principles I had shared with you a few weeks ago about peer. You see the importance of passion, of integrity, importance of empathy. You see the importance of reliability and resilience. In the same vein, you also see the importance of character, capacity, and competence. In my opinion, these above skills are the hardest to understand and even to systematize them. As such, these are the skills that will give you, as the human that we're talking about, because you're not a robot, right? And these are the skills that will give you the edge and continue to give you the edge even as we approach the fourth industrial revolution. I also therefore want to conclude by saying, the question therefore remains, just like Adora mentioned, are we developing these skills that can be automated, that are required now and in the approaching fourth industrial revolution? Those are the questions that we'll be wrapping up with, and we'll leave these questions to our policymakers in education to ensure that we're developing our people to match the skills that are required in the fourth industrial revolution. But above all, take your own personal development, take your development in your own hands, and ensure that you develop yourself along these lines. I'm going to wrap this up because time will no longer permit us, but understand that we can always continue this conversation. You can send us an email at podcast@neveranafterthought.com, podcast@neveranafterthought.com. You can always continue these conversations with the hashtag Never An Afterthought on all our social media channels at NAA_book, which is Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram at NA Afterthought. Till I come your way again next week with another exciting episode, it's myself, Afolabi Imoukhuede, saying to you, stay safe, stay well, and keep winning. God bless you.